Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when you click a link? I mean, information from halfway around the world just appears on your screen almost instantly. It really does feel like magic, but, it's not. It's this incredible, super high-speed journey that your data takes every single time you're online. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how the whole thing actually works.
Right, so you see something you want to read, you click on it, and bam, it's right there. But in that split second, this ridiculously complex chain of events unfolds across a global network. So what on earth is going on in that blink of an eye?
Okay, the best way to wrap your head around this is to imagine the internet as the most sophisticated, most efficient postal service ever created. Seriously, every piece of data, your click, your email, your video stream, is like a tiny letter. And it gets packaged, addressed, sent through the system, and then opened up on the other side. So let's follow one of those letters on its journey.
First things first, we have to pack the message. Before our digital letter can go anywhere, it needs to be properly prepared. And this is way more than just sticking it in an envelope. It's this really clever, multi-layered process.
It all starts right here with you at what's called the application layer. When you click that link in your web browser, you're basically creating the content of the letter. It's a simple request that says, hey, I'd like to see this website, please. Your browser, the application you're using, creates this initial digital message.
Next, that message gets handed down to the transport layer. Its job is to make sure your message gets to the right application on the other computer. Think of it this way. The computer you're sending to is like a giant office building. The transport layer doesn't just send it to the building's mailroom, it specifies which person in which department, say the web server software, is supposed to get your letter.
And here's where it gets really smart. Instead of trying to send one huge package, the transport layer chops your message up into smaller, more manageable pieces called segments. Each one gets a little header with a port number that's kind of like the specific name on that internal office memo, and a sequence number. This makes sure every piece gets to the right software and can be put back together in the correct order later on. So we've addressed our message to the right department inside the building. But which building? In what city? That's the job of the network layer. This layer is in charge of the big picture, getting the data all the way to the correct computer, no matter where it is in the world. This is like putting the full street address on the main envelope.
So each of those little segments is now placed into its own digital envelope, which we call a packet. And on that packet goes maybe the most famous address in the world, the IP address. Just like your home address, every single device connected to the internet has its own unique IP, which means it can be found from anywhere.
We're almost ready to send this thing, but believe it or not, there's one more layer of addressing. This is the data link layer, and it handles the really nitty-gritty local part of the trip. It doesn't care about the final destination in another country. It only cares about one thing: how to get the packet to the very next device in the chain, which might just be your router at home.
To pull this off, the packet gets wrapped in yet another layer called a frame. This frame contains a physical address, also known as a MAC address. So while the IP address is the final destination, the MAC address is just for the immediate next stop. It's like telling the mail carrier, just get this to the sorting office on the next street over. And finally, we hit the physical layer. This is where the digital world becomes the physical world. The fully wrapped frame, which is just a collection of ones and zeros, gets converted into an actual real-world signal, a pulse of electricity in a copper cable, a flash of light in a fiber optic line, or a radio wave flying through the air. And just like that, our message is officially on its way. Okay, so our packet is all packaged up and has been sent out. Now for the really fun part, the high-speed journey across the digital world.
Now your packet doesn't take a direct flight. Nope. Instead, it makes a series of hops. At each hop, a special device called a router acts like a digital sorting office. It quickly unwraps the frame, looks at the packet's final IP address, figures out the best path to the next router, rewraps it in a new frame for that specific hop, and sends it on its way. This happens over and over again, all in a matter of microseconds.
So let's make that distinction really clear. The data link layer is like the local courier, focused only on that one single next hop. But the network layer is the global logistics manager. It's always keeping an eye on that final IP address, making sure that no matter how many hops or detours the packet takes, it never ever forgets its ultimate destination.
After hopping across different networks and maybe even continents, our packet finally arrives at the destination server. But of course, it's still covered in all those layers of digital packaging. So now the whole process has to happen in reverse.
The arrival is basically like watching the sending process on rewind. First, the physical signal is turned back into bits. Then, the data link layer tears off that local frame wrapper. Then, the network layer unwraps the packet, double-checking that it's at the right IP address. And finally, the transport layer acts like a little assembly line, taking all the individual segments, putting them back in the correct order, and handing one complete reassembled message up to the application. The web server now has your original request.
So this entire process of packing, sending, and unpacking works perfectly, billions of times a second, between all these different devices made by thousands of different companies. How is that even possible? Well, it's because they all agree to follow the same rules of the road.
And these rules are called protocols. A protocol is essentially a shared language. It's a very strict set of agreements that defines absolutely everything, from how a packet header should be formatted to the exact sequence of messages needed to request a web page. This is what ensures a computer in Brazil can speak perfectly to a server in Japan, even if they have nothing else in common.
These protocols are all written down as global standards, and this, honestly, is the absolute key to the whole thing. Without these open, shared standards, we'd just have a bunch of different, isolated networks that couldn't talk to each other. These standards are the secret ingredient that guarantees any device can connect to any other device, anywhere in the world.
You know, what makes this whole system so brilliant is that each layer has one very specific job to do, and it only talks to the layers directly above and below it. The physical layer has no idea what a web request is, and it doesn't care. The application layer has no clue if the signal is traveling over Wi-Fi or a fiber optic cable. This separation of concerns is what makes the internet so unbelievably robust and adaptable. So, the next time you stream a movie or send a quick email, just take a second to remember this incredible, invisible dance of packets and protocols happening behind the scenes. This layered architecture is the fundamental engine that makes all of our instant global communication possible. So, we've seen the how, but just think about the what. Billions of these unbelievably complex journeys are happening every single second, and they're all guided by nothing more than a shared agreement on how to communicate. So the real question is, what does it mean for our modern world that it's built on a foundation of invisible, agreed-upon rules